Hey everybody, we're live. Welcome to the S.A.M. Brand Show. I'm Kathy Klotz-Guest. I'm your host as always, and I'm super excited today. Not that I'm not excited every other Friday. I'm always excited. Like I realize that I'm the person that's fully caffeinated before I've even had coffee. That's just me. And if you watch the show regularly, you know that, but you come back for more, and I certainly appreciate it. I am the founder of Keeping It Human, and I am the author of Stop Boring Me, How to Create Kick-Ass Marketing Content, Products, and Ideas Through the Power of Improv. I am a marketing person. I'm also a performing improviser and stage comedian for 20 years. So I think improv is Latin for dancing monkey. I think it comes in handy. And I'm super excited. Hey, JS is already here. I'm gonna put a name here. Get started. Hey, JS, great to see you. We'll have more people kind of show up. So that's awesome. Good to see you, JS. And again, I can't just say enough about our guest here, but I'm just going to keep it short. I feel like everybody already knows him. He doesn't really need an introduction, but he's going to get one anyway. Everybody knows Robert Rhoades. He is the Chief Strategy Advisor for Content Marketing Institute. We all know and love that organization. They produce great content and great studies every year. And I love this story in particular because I still relate to it. In 5th grade, Robert's teacher sent a note home to his parents saying that Robert likes to tell stories. And she was right. So welcome, Robert.
Thank you so much, Kat. It's so great to be here. I've long been a fan of the show and long wanted to be on it. So it's awesome to be here. And it's awesome to be here on Cinco de Mayo. Come on.
Cinco de Mayo.
I got my Cinco de Drinko on.
I got my Cinco de Mayo, as George Takei would approve. Actually, this is juice.
My.
Oh my! This is just straight juice.
Yeah.
No early alcohol for me, but by 5 p.m. I will be a margarita.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere, my friend.
5 o'clock somewhere. So before we get to the super serious stuff, and we welcome everybody as you kind of join us. I have to ask, because I think this is a really, really pressing question for today. How do you make a really good margarita?
Oh, okay. So, all right. So we could have a whole show on this. I had no idea you were going to ask this, but okay. So here we go. Right.
It's on. It's on.
The key is, so one is great tequila. Yes. Now I'm about to either make angry or make super happy a bunch of people because I believe that a margarita is very, very, very simple, which is you take a great tequila and you have fresh squeezed limes, like literally you have to squeeze like 3 or 4 limes per cocktail into a glass, pour in your tequila, a healthy dose, let's be honest. And then I like call it a splash, call it a dash, call it whatever you like, of fresh grapefruit juice to the top of that. Put that in a salt rim glass over ice, and you got yourself a margarita that has no sugar in it other than the fruit sugar. So you don't have any syrup, nothing that gives you headaches. You can drink those all day and do whatever tequila does to you. But it is my absolute favorite way to make a margarita because it's just fruit juice and tequila, and it's just absolutely spectacular.
That sounds pretty good.
It's great.
I'm a top shelf girl myself. I like top shelf. And I guess I'm a little bit of a fruit snob. I kind of like fruity margaritas. I can't help it. Sure. I can't help it. I got to have the fruity margaritas. I'm thinking strawberry.
Okay. All right. You're going that way.
I'm going that way. Although the correct answer to, as always, to what is the best margarita, the correct answer, Robert, of course, was mango. Mango was the correct answer.
All right. Mango is the correct answer to what kind of margarita is a full one is the correct answer.
That's right, a bottomless one.
The fullest and coolest, as we used to say in Texas.
The fullest and coolest. All right. Dan says, hey kids, happy hour somewhere. He says, hey, Robert.
Hey, JS.
Hey, JS. Good to see you. Katarina, welcome. All right. We got some people coming on. People being notified saying hello. Very good. Thank you. Good to see everybody. So let's talk story.
Okay.
We could do a margarita show, and I actually could like fill up 2 hours of just like, margaritas.
Just put it on a little Jimmy Buffett and we're off to the races. Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, yeah. And I don't need the shaker or salt. I prefer it without it, but but I can do it. Well, let's talk about story, because story is one of those things that everybody and their brother baddies around. And, I have my own pet peeves about it because I think it's so important, and I know you believe in it too. I am a little dismayed at the state of story today in marketing, because everybody talks about it, but few people do it. And I think what I think marketing often calls a story is a campaign, and is not a story. And I'm just going to throw down the gauntlet. My biggest pet peeve, I think, is that we're saying story and we're using the word, we're invoking the word because, it's fashionable and trendy and whatnot, but we're just not backing it up in marketing. What's your biggest pet peeve with story and marketing today, Robert?
So it's the difference between, and this is something that was taught to me in as many storytelling and sort of, so I come out of university with an English literature degree, which basically qualifies me to do two things. One is teach Chaucer or to get into marketing, and the latter pays a little better. And so the real, and when I moved out here to Los Angeles, I was a writer for a number of years, and had many screenwriting coaches and teachers. And when it comes down to it, if you get to my biggest pet peeve, which is the not understanding the difference between plot and story. And so if you look at plot, and this is something that every writer has to get over at some point, which is plot is what happened and story is why it's happening. And if you think about plot for a second, and by the way, marketers come to that honestly. We come to speaking in plot honestly. This one comes in red. This one has sugar coating. This one has 450 megabytes of memory. This one comes in extra large. Features and benefit is plot. What happens? What is it? What is going on? Instead of why? Why do I care? And if we can get beyond that, just take something as simple as a case study, right? Yeah. So if I tell you the story of my case study is this wonderful company took on a big challenge and actually used our solution to solve this challenge and got quite a bit of ROI out of it. Yeah. Well, that's the story of every case study I've ever read in my life. And so instead, what if we turn that around and we actually have it be about Bob, this guy who feels overconfident in his job and he feels like he's got the world on a string and he's just feeling great, but something challenges in him in his business that's going to actually turn and disrupt his career. Mm-hmm. He has to think about how he's going to actually get out of that, with the major lesson of that story being, even if you're Bob and feel like you have the world on a string, you can still challenge yourself and learn something new to completely transform your life within your business. Now that's a story. Yeah. Now now I'm interested. Now I want to see how Bob, this person, transforms his life out of using this thing. And it's a really, one of, Marsha Reefer Johnson, who is an amazing editor, she said to me this thing that I'm completely stealing, by the way, as my line now, which is, if you want to think about what makes a great story, put a person in it. Yeah. And what is it about them that really is the transformational thing? And if we can start even just to begin to start to think about telling those kinds of stories instead of just relaying what happened in the plot, we can get to something much deeper, more meaningful, funnier, more engaging, and ultimately more valuable.
Yeah, it's so true. It's like, I think the problem with everybody saying, hey, just do a white paper or a case study. And my problem with case studies in general is exactly what you just said. Not only are they dry and incredibly boring, but there's no emotional resonance whatsoever. I mean, it's just like, this is a book report. And it's a pretty crappy one. And one of the things that I wrote about in the book, and I know you subscribe to this as well, and it's this notion of, my God, I'm so tired of every time I hear a story, a company story, it's the company did this and the company that. Nah, bullshit. It's a person. There's a human being trying to do something.
Exactly.
And companies make really crappy protagonists. You can't have a relationship with a company. We want to slap companies. We're all angry at companies right now for the way they treat us with customer service. But there's got to be this human entity, and it's got to start with a human face and a human protagonist that we resonate with. And I love that you started with Bob being confident, because there's nothing worse than, I think, stories that always start with the fire. And you can do that.
Right, of course.
But you can burn out your audience that way, because too much of marketing is your hair's on fire. Your hair's on fire. And I think it's overwhelming and fatiguing, and it sucks.
Yeah. It
sucks. And how about starting out with, and this is something I learned in improv, which is this notion of happy, healthy, and well. Happy, healthy, and well. There's a normal and a status quo that's not bad. And then something happens and disrupts it. But you can't always start in the middle of the fire. I think it's just an exhausting way that marketing does. And I think these white papers and these case studies kind of sometimes come at it with the hair on fire, It's
exactly right. I mean, we always, it's an easy place to start, right? Mm-hmm. This company was having the biggest challenge of their existence, and we came in with our CRM software and solved all the issues, and so that's exactly it, right? So this is classic hero's journey stuff, which is start in the ordinary world. And the ordinary world isn't always something, it can be a dissatisfied world. It can be one that we're actually looking and striving for something, but it doesn't have to be miserable. And in fact, some of the greatest stories ever told start with our hero being quite happy in their life, quite satisfied in what they're doing, and then something external comes in to actually disrupt them out of that life. And shake them out of their doldrums. And in fact, the whole reluctant hero, the idea of the reluctant hero comes out of that, right? So think of the detective. Every detective, sort of cop movie that you've ever seen, where the old detective who's very happy, just about to retire, goes to their retirement party, and then some supervillain has to come screw the whole thing up to have them go, too old for this shit, and that's the start of a great story. The other, by the way, flip side of that is it doesn't always have to end in a happy ending either.
Yes.
Not every bow has to be tied up at the end.
Oh my gosh.
The great Pixar, when they talk about storytelling, and in the wonderful book that is written about the way they tell stories, talks about this, which is characters just need to make progress. They don't have to end up in they don't have to end up, we care much more about their struggle than we do about their happy ending.
Yeah, so true. I mean, I'm really sick of the whole perfect bow ending, because that's not reality, right? And I think customers do not expect perfection. In fact, I think perfection, and then all the problems went away and they got the girl because
exactly.
because they used our CRM solution. Right. it's like, well, and not only is it just a believability issue, but I think it's just life isn't perfect. Sometimes there are no easy answers, and I think it's okay to have a humorous ending that says, "Look, all right, we may have solved Bob's immediate situation, but he's got a lot of work.
Opened up a whole new can of worms for him, right?
He's opened up a whole new can of worms, and all the time he spent trying to solve his problem at work, he's got some making up to do with his wife and family. Like, exactly. where's the humor? Where's the human? Human ending that says, look, all right, we're not going to solve Bob's personal problems, but we're gonna help with this one area of his life. And I would just love to see more perspective and more commensurate reality in an ending. Because I personally, and I know you do too, it's like, if I read one more of these, especially in Silicon Valley with tech, if I read one of more of these, like perfect, like da-da-da-da, like, Lone Ranger endings, I'm going to lose my mind.
Right.
It's like, no.
But Kathy, are you hustling in an agile way? If you're hustling in an agile way and disrupting and getting innovative about the synergies, then if you get those synergies going with your innovative hustling and being agile about it in a lean startup kind of fashion, then we'll all be much better.
I'm hustling it. I'm crushing it. I'm killing it. I'm feeling it. I'm drilling it. I'm putting it down. I'm about to go into a rap mode. Like I'm seriously like it's like every outdated bellicose war metaphor. I'm killing it, hunting it, drilling it, filling it, sticking it, crushing it. And it's like, oh my god!
Did you just use the word bellicose?
I did.
You just did drop bellicose. Okay.
I dropped bellicose, y'all.
You can do that before the margaritas is what you can do.
I can totally do that. Yeah, no, I can do that. Well, it's so true. And it sort of reminds me, just, you know, and I know you see this probably in a lot of industries that you work in, and especially in tech, where I'm out here in Silicon Valley, and by no means tech is not, you know, the place I've worked in, but I came out of tech. And so you just hit on something really important. Is it not only this hero's journey that is it's so embedded in the tech industry itself, because if you look at, you know, Jobs and Wozniak, if you look at, you know, Hewlett and Packard and HP, if you look at these origin stories of a lot of companies, it is the defining thing, this you know, hero's journey. But the hero's journey with tech has gotten a little bit out of control. And what I mean by it is this: it's the beginning of the story. But I see it a lot in tech, where tech has celebrated this idea, this mythology of the lone genius, the cult of the lone genius. Yeah. It's like, I'm the hero on the white horse. Yeehaw! And I'm going to come in and save the day. And I think there's a deeply rooted mythology in that hero's journey, where a lot of tech companies have fallen into that story chasm because, you know, they have not been able to make that transition over the chasm, to borrow from Jeffrey Moore. They've not been able to cross that chasm because they cannot get out of this me, I'm the founder and I'm the hero, to the we. And I see so much of this hero's journey coming back and biting technology in the butt, especially when these stories are out there. And I don't know what you're seeing, but I'm seeing that a lot.
Well, it's an easy one. It's an easy one to I totally agree, by the way. We have gotten, and many in the tech space, and it's not only Silicon Valley, it's you know, it's the Silicon Prairie. Down here, it's the Silicon Beach. In New York, it's the Silicon Alley. And, you know, we have the Silicon Desk, and we have the Silicon Home Life, and we have the Silicon Glass House, and the Silicon Greenhouse. And so, but it's this tech sort of idea, this lone superhero. You know, I'll borrow from Dark Knight, which is, you know, we create these heroes long enough for them to become the villains, and you know, you can see this happening now, where you put so much of your bet on the actual the cult of personality of the business itself, that you lose the brand of the business, right? And Uber is losing this in spades right now, right? They have built so much on their cult of personality of being a startup, that they never stopped to realize that they were truly a very large enterprise that quite frankly had all the same failings as a big airline. And now has become one of the most, you know, right now in this moment in time that we're speaking anyway, a really hated brand at the moment. And so that you can get very lost in your own story, and your own mythology. And so it's really important as you start looking at telling stories that you don't get so wrapped up in the mythology of your own company and wrapped up in your own sort of mythos, that you forget the customer, that you forget that the customer ultimately is who you're building this experience for and who you're telling these stories about. It is a thing to get wrapped up in. And I think with the Uber, it's such a, you know, we could extend it even further. I think somewhere along the line, you know, again, it's not really a story issue. It's a culture problem. It goes back to the culture. That's right.
And, you know, there's a lot we could say about Uber. The poster child for brands behaving badly when brands go wrong. Well, JS asks a question here, which is a really good one. Why do you think corporate storytelling that attempts to incorporate humor is pretty awful? What do you think, Robert? I mean, I certainly have my own theory, but what do you think? It's a great question.
Well, because they're not very funny is the easy answer. They're just not very funny people. The deeper, I think, answer there is that it's not a muscle that companies get to exercise. It's the same reason that they're not typically very good storytellers, is because it's a muscle that they don't very often get to exercise. They may be very funny people, but quite frankly, I run into this all the time when I go into a company and, we start talking about, I'll read the first draft of a blog post or an ebook or a white paper or something like that. And it is funny. It is interesting. It's got a point of view. And then what happens is it goes to legal, and then it goes to the product people, and then it goes to the brand people, and then it goes to the PR people, and everybody takes all the funny out of it. And you take all the point of view out of it. And so it's still 4,000 or 5,000 words, but it's like blah, 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 blah. And so we get so wrapped up and, in the idea that we can't have a point of view, or that the point of view that we're taking has to appeal to everybody. Because let's be honest, if we're trying to be funny, we're not going to be funny to some. We're not going to make, some people are going to either find the humor tasteless or not funny or wrong or or whatever, or that's a bad joke. Yeah. Whatever it is, humor, and this gets into a whole conversation about what funny really is, which there's some amazing stand-up comedians who've done talks on this.
Yeah.
Humor is a distinct point of view. Humor, funniness is taking a stand. It's absolutely taking a stand. And that's what most brands are just unwilling to do. Yep.
Well said. No, it's true. I mean, so many things wrapped up in that, so many layers, and I totally agree. So I've done a lot of humorous campaigns. I have a background in improv and stand-up. I do stand-up all the time. And it is exactly that. It's a muscle they haven't used. They don't know how to use it. They're so afraid of offending people that they water it down. And the worst thing that happens is, legal is where humor goes to die. B2B is where humor goes to die. And it's like somebody thinks it's a vampire and just drills a stake through its heart. And you can't get there by committee. And the worst thing to happen is you get all these voices involved, and sort of the risk aversion flows to the most conservative, scared point. And then right. That becomes held hostage. And that's what I see happen a lot. And I've done campaigns for companies, and then it goes to legal. Legal kills it. Yeah. And the other part of it is, it absolutely, it completely kills it. But I think the other part of it too is that I think there are companies that shouldn't use humor until they get their crap together. And I'll be specific. If you are an Uber, if you are one of these companies and you think, and I've seen this happen, Robert, I can't tell you how many times I get a call. Well, we love your point of view. You're funny. Can you write a campaign for us? And I'm like, no, because here's the thing. If you're Uber and you've got a culture in crisis and you have a very, very bad reputation, you need to fix your shit. Because there's no humor that's going to put a Band-Aid on a head wound. Right. And I say no, because there's no way. I could take your money, but I'm not going to be successful for you. And the thing, it's a very tough conversation, but it's a very direct conversation I've had to have with people, which is, look, humor is the luxury of people who have pretty decent brands, can make fun of themselves, but they have a product and they have a reputation that is pretty solid, or maybe they're new right out of the gate. They're a new startup and they don't have a legacy that can be hurt. They're new, but it is not the purview of brands that think that being funny is going to wipe away. It's like Men in Black. It's going to erase people's memory. Right. If you've got a brand issue, and I can't tell you how many times I see this misguided thinking, and I see it a lot. Given the work that I do in the world, I see it a lot. And I have a lot of these kind of conversations, and it's amazing. I should write a blog post. It's amazing that people think that that's what will happen, is if they just are funny, that millennials will forget all the horrible things that their culture has done. And that's a whole other thing,
Well, it's the same in humor as it is in being educational or instructional versus engaging versus sort of thought leadership. All of those things are based upon what your brand allows for at that moment in time, right? So in other words, I'm not sure I'm going to sign up for the United Airlines customer course on how to take care of customers at this point, right? Not sure right. I'm signing up for their Udemy course, or their Khan Academy, a course on that. But or Pepsi's, how to solve world challenges at the moment. So this works across everything, right? And what you're experiencing is the brand's inevitability of saying, how do we get ourselves out of this, right? So we're in this pickle. We're in this brand perspective right now. We've done the research. We've done the consumer perceptions. And they say, here's the state we find ourselves in. How do we get ourselves out of it? And they say, we'll be funny. That's what we'll do. We'll show the world that we're funny. No. You got to earn your way back into that, right? And so whether or not it's, so if you think about it, the brand is really the universe in which stories are told. Mm-hmm. And so you have to make sure that the brand's universe can allow for those stories to be told as a part of the physics of that universe. In other words, if I tried to do a Star Wars sitcom, ain't going to work. I can just tell you it's not going to work because a Star Wars sitcom is not within the permissions of the current state of the Star Wars brand. And so taking that brand and looking at where you are and first starting to figure out how do we start earning our way into the stories that we can tell, and then starting to tell those stories as a support for that is the way to start.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally agreed. And when you have the credibility, you have a lot of elasticity. Exactly. You've got the elasticity and room to move. But when you don't have that as your foundation, you can't go anywhere with that. You can't do anything other than fix those underlying structural issues. And it's very Darwinian. If you don't fix those, you don't have anything else to stack all this other stuff on top of. Bad culture, bad products. Then you have bad messaging. It's just that's the way it is. You can even look at where. So right now, I would argue in this moment in time, I would say Heineken has earned a spot at the table to talk about politics or world conflict or whatever. Sort of having a conversation about serious world issues. They earned a spot. They created something that actually earned their spot at that table. My challenge with that ad is I don't see anything else, right? Yeah. I don't see anything else they're doing. And if they let that moment die, well, then they're going to have to re-earn their way back into it. They don't, that seat at the table of where your brand credibility sits is not permanent and can be spoiled in an instant. And so once you earn it, taking advantage of that and actually having that conversation over the longer haul is such an important thing to do. So it's like, I can appreciate the Heineken ad for what it was, but if I don't see anything coming out of that other than a hashtag, then they're not going to keep that seat for very long. That's a really great point. And it's funny that you bring that up because I saw that the other day and I thought of you because I thought, I wonder if Robert has seen this ad. And of course you have, and I figured you had. And I have to say, I was struck by it too, because it was a really good example to me of, you really nailed it. I think when you have that kind of foundation and you have a respected brand, you can do stuff, which is why when Starbucks did their conversations, they tried to do the race forward, I think, or I can remember the hashtag. The execution was not great, but the intent behind it, I think, was solid. And I think actually Starbucks has earned the right because Starbucks is credible. I think Schultz has always taken a stand in the last few years. Everything from paying coffee farmers a decent wage to LGBTQ rights. So this doesn't come out of nowhere. So it wasn't when I saw that, I went, okay, the execution was a little bit like, I'm not looking to have a conversation before I'm caffeinated with my barista about 400 years of oppression and slavery. I'm not looking to do that, but I so admire their ability, and I hope Starbucks doesn't back away from that. I hope Starbucks moves forward and starts to have more of these conversations because I fundamentally believe that Starbucks has the brand equity to be able to do that. And I think you're right. Heineken should as well. Yeah,
I think that's exactly right. I mean, I appreciated the effort there.
Yeah.
If not, I would agree wholeheartedly that the execution wasn't quite there. Yeah. They didn't quite think it through. But otherwise, I would like to see them continue that conversation. And the same, by the way, it's the same thing for Pepsi, right?
Yes. Oh gosh.
I saw an article that came out that said basically, well, this, and it was written by an agency person who basically said, oh, well, the Pepsi video basically explains why brands should never open their own content studio. And that's just a silly argument.
Totally
right?
silly. Yeah.
They didn't do it right. Somebody messed up in communicating that they shouldn't actually have the Kardashian girl hand the guy a Pepsi, and that's not, somebody messed up, right? But that doesn't nullify the effort. It doesn't nullify the idea. And as Joe and I talked about on our podcast, I'll bet you if you read the first draft of that, going back to our earlier conversation, I'll bet you if you read the first draft of that script or that idea, you probably would have gone, yeah, that's a really interesting idea. Let's try that. Yeah. By the time it went through legal and product and brand and all the traditional ad people, it got to the end and they went, yeah, let's put the Kardashian girl with a piece of Pepsi and have it give it to the cop. That seems like a good idea. Not?
Yeah. I think we can summarize the takeaway here is that, sorry, lawyers, but you're not
takeaways? You're not takeaways?
Yeah, we have takeaways. We do.
Oh, all right.
We do because we've got. Hey, I use bellicose. I think we can all agree that was a pre-Margarita takeaway. Thank you. That is a good
hashtag bellicose takeaways, ladies and gentlemen.
Bellicose takeaways. But I also think like you said, I think lawyers. No disrespect to lawyers in the house. Many of my friends and my own family members are lawyers. They're not good storytellers.
Many of my friends are lawyers.
Let's just say that my best friend is but they're not great storytellers. And we're laughing because part of what this podcast is to tell the truth in a funny way and use humor to do it. But I think that's exactly the problem is it gets through all these silos and stories get killed. And I actually think that the real raw notion of storytelling within companies happens when we let the people closest to the customer have more of a say. And I think that we're using humor to make the point, but if we could just strip away a lot of the legal, yes, I get risk mitigation, I get it. But if we could just get back to the essence of the stories from the customer service people, the people on the front lines in marketing, the people in sales, the people that are closest to the customer to be able to understand and be in touch with the real customer beliefs and needs, that's where it seems like story needs to go. I'm so tired of the corporate whitewash perfect story, like the Pepsi thing. It was like, no wonder it's horrible. How do we get back there? How do we get back to this sort of grassroots, Robert, storytelling, which I really believe you need top-down storytelling, but I think we need a revival of bottoms-up storytelling too, to really make it more pure and more real.
Well, I think you're starting to see some of the grassroots of that come to flower, or some metaphor that is eluding me at the moment. But I think what we're starting to see is brands, especially around this idea of customer experience, and really getting customer centric. Now, there are brands no doubt giving lip service to that and not really doing anything about it. And then there are companies that really are trying to actually empower storytelling or empower the employees, team members, customers, partners to help become the storytellers of the organization and sort of operate within that brand universe and actually have the freedom. I think not to draw the metaphor back to airlines, but I think Southwest does a great job of this.
Yes.
Despite what you may think about the Southwest experience on the actual plane, being a bus or whatever, one of the things that I love about what they do from a storytelling perspective is they've taken the classic, airline warning, flight attendant announcement as you're getting ready to take off, and they've enabled those people to tell that story the way they want to tell it.
Yeah.
And, whether it's in a rap or a song or something, and of course, so many of those have been posted online, et cetera, et cetera. It's a very small thing. But the interesting thing is, it's not that they just say, go do that. They actually help them provide that. When the flight attendants go to training, they're told how to do it. And then they're said, but make it your own, right? Yeah. And so enabling them to, not forcing them to do it, but enabling them to tell stories and take advantage of their, as we said in the very beginning of this show, people are funny, businesses aren't.
Right.
And so, and so enabling the people to be funny in the business is really the true mark of that. Yeah. And the companies that are sort of, as I watch, companies like United Airlines or what we've seen recently with the spate of customer service issues, et cetera, and issuing more dictums and policies and procedures and stuff like that, instead of just working with their teams to say, be better humans. Yeah. I think that's the transformation we're going to start to see, which is becoming more customer centric, allowing for more flexibility, knowing that, quite frankly, your story, that flight attendant who was on the Delta flight just yesterday or the day before and kicked that family off and basically opened up, her opening salvo was, you're going to jail and your kids are going to foster care. It's like, no. You see what you did? You just told a story that wasn't in the universe of the Delta brand, right? And so guess what? You lose every time. And so enabling people but training people to be, to be basically good at it without telling them how to do it is the real root level thing here. And we're starting to see it. It's a slow change, is for sure. The changes around having, the ability to film and shoot video and record and become, where every customer experience becomes one that will be immortalized in media is just a very disruptive thing for most businesses. And it's one, candidly, that I'm not surprised that they're slow to actually evolve into.
It's such a great point. Because you have to have a framework. You have to have the meta story, but you're so right. You have to let the employees within their training tell it the way they're going to do it. And one of the things that I've always loved about Southwest, besides and Herb Kelleher really, built a company about people and has, famously always said he'd rather hire for personality and he could teach them the rest and attitude. Right.
Yeah.
And what I love about that is so often when I'm flying Southwest, it's like they have comedians. They hire comedians because they have a great personality to hire them and let them do their thing. And of course, I love it. It's a great way to think about. But humor is a really deep value. And this goes back to the consistency issue we talked about, but it's a part of their brand values. So when they're doing it, it doesn't seem out of ordinary with the brand. Right. And when you have a brand that's got problems, and even if they don't have problems, if you've got a brand that, humor is not what they're known for, it's not part of their normal everyday, how they show up in the world. The problem, I think, a lot of times what happens is when they try to be human and try to be funny, specifically, is that you end up going, well, that brand voice, okay, but that just doesn't match what we know about the brand. And I think, and I say this, I've said it for years, I think we're starting to see more companies realize that, look, humor isn't cosmetic. Either it's part of your corporate DNA and it's part of your brand values, because it just can't come out of somewhere and then all of a sudden you've never used it before and then it looks organic. It doesn't. It looks forced. And I think companies have really always underestimated the power of something like humor as being such a human value, and bake it in into your culture in the first place. Yes.
And it's truly, and again, humor is absolutely one sort of pole on that spectrum. But it's really everything along that storytelling spectrum, right? It's everything from being adventurous to being funny to being educational to being just, quite frankly, happy, right? To being, to showing joy, to showing inspiration, to showing, whatever the sort of emotional connection is. It's so closely tied to where your brand is at the moment. It is part of that. It is part of that DNA and that universe, if you will, of where the brand is. So just hiring a bunch of comedians doesn't solve your challenge. You've got to hire them in context with earning the way into the ability to tell those stories in that way.
Well, and I think it really gets back to, and part of like many years ago when I sort of, was left high tech and really started thinking about this, part of I think being human is the funny will come. One of the things that if I've learned nothing from just stage work in 20 years is that you can't force the funny. What you need to do is be organically human. And when you are organically human and you use humor, then it's like, well, that makes sense. Sure. So it's really about, I think, like you said, it's just making sure your brand values are human. And then when you do use humor, it'll be much more organic, less forced.
Good point.
It won't come out of left field. And so I always think that the true thing isn't so much focusing, and JS brings up another point, being funny or not funny with respect to, and the storytelling humor spectrum, just humor. It's how can I be human? How can I be a great storytelling company? And then when I do use different devices like humor, it will feel so much more natural and fit with our voice. And I think that's what companies need to do, really just get back to the human place. But you can't divorce it from culture, right? Branding is not an exercise. And I think what we're seeing, when I see these things with United and Uber and Delta and all these different companies, I think part of the problem is they've treated storytelling like a brand exercise, Robert.
Exactly. A campaign or an ad, right?
Yeah.
You know, it exists in time, and it exists to provide us some value in that moment of time. Yeah. But it doesn't actually provide. It doesn't. And forgetting that every one of those things, that they're used to. So when I was a kid, there used to be this thing which has become, a joke now, where they would say, "This is going on your permanent record."
Yes.
And so we used to laugh at that, right? As kids, we would laugh. We would go, "Oh, come on!" Some of the things that I did as a kid. Trust me, if they were on YouTube,
I'd be in trouble. I would be. Right. I can never run for political office. I would never be able to.
And so, but now it actually kind of is part of your permanent record, right? Everything we do, and that not only applies to brands, by the way, but it applies to what we do as employees, is what we do as influencers, is what we do as team members, is what we do as friends, as family members. Everything we sort of now operate in can be immortalized and part of our permanent record. And so we have to all remember that we're all storytellers, whether we kind of want to or not.
Amen. Amen, brother. So true. JS makes a really good point here. Storytellers also need to understand that the audience is offering their attention as currency. Yeah, that's such a really important point. Yeah, it gets to your point earlier, Robert. You said you haven't earned the right. And I love the way you phrased it, because I think we forget sometimes that attention is earned. It's earned. And
it's precious these days.
And it's precious.
It's absolutely precious. As he says, it's currency, right?
It's currency.
It may be even more, attention these days may be more precious than dollars, right? Yeah. How many, it's fascinating to me these days with the amount of apps that come in the form of games or productivity apps or services, software as a service, all these, these things that you mindlessly sign up for now that are subscriptions, where you're going to pay some level of money per month or per year to get a product or service. And in many ways, it's easier to extract a few dollars a month out of me than it is a few more minutes of attention from me. Yeah. And that attention is becoming more valuable, arguably, than the money we spend. And so getting their attention is actually, in some cases, more important, and holding that attention over time is more important than extracting a few bucks out of them. Because quite frankly, if you don't have their attention, that money will be, that subscription will be fleeting. If you don't hold my attention, then I'm as unlikely to unsubscribe to your service or discontinue my subscription or discontinue my product than I am, I can't tell you how many subscriptions to social media tools that I've purchased, right? Just as an example of this. And, they either haven't held my attention, or if I start to forget to use them, or they don't give me a great experience, and I just turn them off. And so, it's only $4 or $5 a month or $10 a month or something like that. But the point is that my attention is actually more precious in that case than my initial transaction was. But if you don't hold it over time, the transaction is just that. It's a transaction. I'm not actually a customer. I'm just somebody who gave you a couple of bucks instead of my attention.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I'm going to show this comic because it made me chuckle. And I think it's because we used the word hustle. We laughed at hustle. JS says, Poor Gary V. That's funny. Yeah. I think sometimes we get a little, we get so highfalutin, especially tech. I know every industry has its jargon. I get it, but we get so highfalutin with the hustle thing. I personally, just for me, JS, I'm sort of over the hustle thing. Like, less talk, just more doing it. Just less talking about it and telling everybody you're hustling, and just actually doing the hustle.
Yes.
Like, and not the weird disco version. Just like do the work. Right. You know.
Kids, in my day, the hustle was a dance.
Exactly. Yeah. Now it's the hustle.
I mean, it's the same. It's the same thing. I'm over the whole failing fast thing too. By the way.
Yeah.
Why don't we just think about what we want to do instead of constantly focusing on failing fast? Let's just put a couple of more seconds of thought or creativity or work into the thing so that we're not always failing. So it's before I get the hate mail, I like failing fast. I just think it's become, in many marketing organizations, we become overly reliant on this idea of failing fast rather than actually putting some work into the content we're creating.
Totally agreed. I think we're also, and that's a really good segue to maybe some tips as we sort of kind of round out. Because I think part of it is people are scared to take risks. And one of the things that I know frustrates me, and I'll just say it. I think that there's an industry-wide recognition that we have to be better in content. Everybody knows it. Everybody recognizes it. We all recognize that, we talk about doing better, but there's such fear. There's such fear to change. And so everybody's talking about, hey, be different. Hey, safe is risky and blah, 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 blah. And we're all talking about it, but it becomes a placard. It becomes a t-shirt mug that just goes like a fruitcake that goes around, hey, everybody. And it's like, oh, for the love of God, like, let's talk it and more rocking it. Let's do it. And so how do we get out of this? I feel like there's got to be some disruption in content marketing. There really has to be, because I think the status quo is actually pretty bad. I think there's a lot of talk and there's not a lot of action. So, what would you say about that? What tips would you give?
Wow. Well, it's a little, it's ironic that we're looking for quick tips or something to help us do long-term thinking better. But so with that irony duly noted.
Exactly. Well, I'm asking Robert to boil the ocean, and I recognize that. But here's your top 5 reasons you need to think more. Exactly. Well, and the answer isn't always like, your tip isn't something that someone's going to go home and like and do it right then and there. It may be.
I know what you mean.
It's going to be structural. Yeah. It's going to be a structural commitment. So what do people have to do? What do organizations have to commit to? I think that's better wording.
Yeah, you know what I find it is these days, it's committing to stopping something.
Yes.
And it's the first thing that I advise brands to do is these days is when I walk into that team room, because what inevitably happens is when I work with a client and I'll sit with them and we'll whiteboard out this wonderful new customer experience, this digital content marketing platform, whatever it's going to be. It's great. We spend all day on it. We map it out over the course of 18 months and we measure it and we've got a plan to build it and we do it, which is great. And at the end of that, somebody raises their hand and they go, yeah, here's the thing. I don't want to be that guy, but we still have to, and then fill in the blank, right? We still have to send out the social media teams thing. We still have to send out that email newsletter. We still have to get the content for the new conference coming up. We still have to, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And my question is, what if we stopped? What if you stopped everything right now? Like no more social media posts, no more blog posts, no more white papers, no more website updates, no more one sheets, no more collateral, no more emails. What if you just stopped publishing content, full stop? And that's about the part where they start having a heart attack and break out in cold sweats. But I said, who would miss it? Mm-hmm. Who would miss what you're creating? Mm-hmm. And if the only answer is our boss, then we really need to stop and think. Yeah. What do we want to stop doing? Because because I have too much money and too much time on my hands, said no marketing person ever in the history of the world.
Right.
And so what is it we can stop doing so that we can actually start to make room for either slowing down slowing. I love Anne Handley has this new talk, which I've seen once and haven't seen again, sadly, because we haven't been in the same conference in a while. Yeah. But she has this whole thing about the slow eating, slow cooking, sort of metaphor that she takes in marketing. It's wonderful, but it's that, right? How do we start, actually not hustling, actually slowing down the process of marketing to a point where we're doing creative, interesting, telling deeper stories, telling more, humorous stories, really getting to the meat and the heart of what it is we want to be, rather than just throwing BuzzFeed crap against the wall. Yeah. And that alone is such a huge step. Yeah. It's not, it's not passing healthcare through the house step size, but it's a big step, right? It's a big step in what we're trying to do. And so if we even just take the step of what we should stop doing, we've taken a big step forward into getting the quality of our content up. Yeah. Yeah. And I think you said something that is just resonates with me, and I totally agree. I think we're so, as marketers, hey, 5 top tips for this and 10 top tips for this, and it's like, stop the insanity, just get off the treadmill. And we sometimes, I love that metaphor, and I've heard Anne talk a little bit about this, and you're right, and it resonates for me, and I know so many people, because I think we're pumping out so much that no one's reading it. And Jay Baer said that the average 50% of content gets 8 shares. Half of all an organization's content. And by, let's face it, if that were a grade and we were grading you in school, that's a fail. That's a big old F. So why are we working so hard to put out all this content that is not the right content? And it's risk mitigation, right? We're trying to hedge our bets. It's because we don't believe, and this goes everything I've been talking about for the last 45 minutes on this show, which is we're so scared that what we're going to create isn't good enough that we default to, we'll just create more of it then, because that something might go viral. Something might hit, No, I completely agree. I think we need to really temper it with some intelligence, and that means stepping back. I know, I sound really mean. I sound like no. You got to get a T-shirt. You have to get a T-shirt that says that. Maybe we can just temper this with some intelligence. I know. That's a great line. Let's just temper this with some intelligence. Can we just for a little bit? I should. It's like the Louis C.K. thing. It's like, but maybe. Can we? What's with all the content? What's with it? But seriously, I mean, and humor is always the truth, right? It's like, I think if we were less focused on. You do have to take risks, but the risks shouldn't be so fast and furious that we are fragmenting ourselves. So it has to be smart risks that, how does this fit with our larger brand? And if we're doing this content piece over here, we're not looking at it like a one-off campaign. Does it advance our brand story? And I know you believe in this. To me, it's like, my God, if you don't have the big company story right, nothing else matters, because everything you do has to live up to the lights. Like, is this real? Is this counterfeit? Does this advance the brand story? And if you cannot answer the question yes, then why are you doing it? And I know, why are you doing it? Right. Why are we doing it? It's just more resources that giant flushing sound, like we're just flushing resources down the toilet. Why are we doing it? And I think actually content marketing people would be relieved if somebody in their organization would say, I give you permission to stop the hustle, to back away, and let's just be smart, and less is more, but let's make the stuff that we do more intentional. And and that would be I think everybody would go, oh, thank God, I'm off this ridiculous merry-go-round. Yeah. So I really think you're right, and Anne is on the money, and I think that's the right way to think about this stuff. So have permission, everybody, to stop the hustle. Just stop the hustle. Here's your tip: stop the hustle. Have more tequila. Have more tequila. I think eat guacamole more slowly. Eat guacamole more slowly. Have a lot of margaritas today. I personally am going to go out and have such great authentic Mexican food. It'll be so authentic that Trump is going to try to build a wall around it. No, he'll try to build a wall around it because it'll be really authentic. So, well, at the time we have left, we just got a few minutes, and I always love talking to you.
Robert, what are you up to these days, and where can people find you if they want to connect with you?
Well, that's very kind of you to ask. So I'm just finished a book with my pal, Joe Polizzi, that'll be coming out in September. So that's what's been keeping me busy over the last couple of months, other than client work and the ongoing consulting and advisory that I do with brands of all sizes, talking about all these things that we just talked about.
Yeah.
For information on that, I invite everybody to go to contentadvisory.net, which is my main website for the company and all the things that I do. Our new book will be out in September, where we're going to be talking about all these kinds of things about, rebooting marketing, basically to talk about storytelling and creating customer experiences. And for anything about kind of that sort of stuff, or just if you happen to want to see my picture for some reason, or a cute picture of a dog, which is my dog, you can go to robertrhoades.net, which is my main website.
Fantastic. Thank you. And everybody, thank you for watching. As always, I'm Kathy Klotz-Guest. This is the Yes and Brand Show. We do it every week, Fridays at 10 a.m. And since I have been asked, Yes and Brand is the name of the next book that I'm writing. It's very purposeful. It's very much about blending the worlds, again, of improvisation and what that means in all the best possible ways with storytelling, and how we can actually do that with customer service as well. And you can find me at keepingithuman.com. You can find me on the interwebs, the Twitter, as my mom used to call it, God bless her. She'd say the Twitter at Kathy Klotz-Guest, no hyphen. So with that, I salute you, Robert.
I salute you.
All right, my friend. Have a wonderful weekend. Have a wonderful Cinco de Mayo.
Thank you. You too.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.